Hello, everybody. Today's first review is going to be of Mission Impossible 3. So this would have been I believe, the first one that I ever saw in theaters because I would have been old enough by that time to actually go see. Well, I mean, there was plenty of movies that I saw in theaters before this one, but yeah, I think 2000 was a little early. I can't remember exactly when I saw like Mission Impossible 2 for the first time, but I do know that this one was 2006, right? So it was so close between the first two movies, like 4 years between the first two, and then it was 6 years, and then I think 2011 was the one after that. So yeah, quite a bit of time between the movies, obviously. But yeah, I haven't seen a Mission Impossible movie in theaters since number three. I know that much. So if they ever brought them back, like one and two, I would definitely take the opportunity to go and see them if they were anywhere close to me. Yeah, so I think probably they might do that eventually because what, 1996? So I guess possibly in like 2036 they might bring Mission Impossible back out for like a 40th anniversary type thing. And then obviously in like 2040 that would be 40 years since Mission Impossible 2. So I can imagine them doing something like that because yeah, if Tom Cruise has any say, they probably would do something like that for those movies just because yeah, like the first two were just so iconic and just kind of got the ball rolling for the series. But in this one, I would say like the group that he has in this one is the obviously the more established group throughout the rest of the movie series, for sure. Like introducing Benji in this one, and then having Luther as well in this one. I think he was just like now he was just like a small cameo at the end of this one, but he still made somewhat of an appearance, right? So it still counts, and yeah, for him to be in all of these movies alongside Tom Cruise right from the very beginning, like right from the first one. Now he doesn't always have like the hugest role, but I think obviously after like number three and four, yeah, like he definitely oh no, I guess in three he did have quite a bit of a bigger role too. Yeah, because he was there when they break into the compound. Yeah, so it was number four that he did the cameo in. I'm getting the endings mixed up. But anyhow, um, so yeah, I gave this movie an 8 out of 10. I thought it was deserving of that. It wasn't like obviously my favorite in the series. My favorite is number two, as you'll know that by now if you've watched the review for the second one when this one is coming out. So yeah, but anyway, we'll go over the um, we'll go over the cast list as we always do. And I did give this movie an 8 out of 10 if I didn't already say that. I can't remember. I kind of rambled on there for a little bit at the beginning. So we'll get into the cast now. So Tom Cruise, who played obviously returning as Ethan Hunt. Michelle Monaghan, who played Julia, so his wife. We'll talk more about that obviously. Ving Rhames, who played Luther. I think I might have said Strickle in one of the earlier movies, but I guess it's actually Luther Stickle, so I might have had the name wrong. Forgive me if I did that, but yeah, it is Luther Stickle, I do believe, not Strickle. So if I pronounce that wrong, that's my bad. Philip Seymour Hoffman, who played Owen Davian. Billy Crudup, who played Musgrave. Sorry. Jonathan Rhys Myers, who played Declan, who was part of his team. Kerry Russell, who played Lindsay Ferris, who was the first person that Ethan ever awarded active field duty besides himself, I think, because now he had that kind of authority. So he's clearly moving up in like the IMF world, I guess you could say. Now he is sort of saying that I think he tries to say that he's somewhat retired in this movie, like he doesn't want to go back out into active field duty, so he's retired from active field duty, at least in that sense, right? Like he's training new recruits kind of thing and letting somebody else take the reins, right? Because now it seems like he wants to live a little bit more of a normal life. But of course, obviously, things don't go the way he had planned, and he gets kind of sucked back into it, right? Maggie Q, who played Zen, who was another one of the people on his team. Simon Pegg, who played Benji, who was, again, another member who eventually becomes part of his team. And then Lawrence Fishburne, who played Theodore Brassel. So we'll go to the very beginning of the movie, which starts out actually probably one of the most intense beginnings to the Mission Impossible movies that I've ever seen, where Ethan is captured and an explosive charge is placed in his head. He is asked about this he's asked about the rabbit's foot. The man questioning him shoots a woman named Julia, who we discover is Ethan's wife. So, yeah, right off the hop, like, this movie just starts off pretty intense because we don't really know how he got to this position, or, yeah, like, why he's there, why his wife is there, sort of thing. Yeah, so it just kind of, like, tells us the story of, like, how he gets to that point and how he would get himself in that sort of a situation where it almost seems like he can't escape it himself. Like, it almost, yeah, like, the first two movies, there was always a way out for him, right? But in this one, it almost seems like whoever is holding him hostage is quite a few steps ahead of him. And I will say that Philip Seymour Hoffman played a villain, probably one of the, like, besides the guy from the Syndicate that we learn about later on in the series, I would say that this is one of the best written villains in the entire series. Not my favorite movie of all time in the series, obviously, but it's still one of the better written villains for sure. So Ethan gets a call about an all-expense paid trip to Mexico and goes to meet an old colleague who tells him Agent Ferris has disappeared, or has been off grid for 11 hours. So they don't exactly know, like, now they might know her location, but they don't exactly, well, I guess if she was off grid, they wouldn't necessarily know her location, but they do end up tracking her down, and Ethan's mission is obviously to go and retrieve her, right? So I guess Ferris was, tasked with tracking Owen Davian, obviously, when she was captured, and then Ethan's mission is to rescue Ferris, right? So now he has to put together a team and go save Ferris from Berlin, Germany. So Ethan and his team infiltrate the compound, setting off explosives and cutting the power before Luther takes care of nearly everyone with 2 mounted guns. Ethan is able to get Ferris out safely. Now, when they get further away from the compound, Ferris starts to begin complaining about her head, and then that's when Ethan discovers that there is a time-release charge implanted, and the only way to stop it or shut it down is to, like, zap her with a defibrillator, and that should, like, disarm the charge, and then they can bring her back to life, obviously, with another hit from the defibrillator, right? Or at least that's what Ethan says in theory should work. Now, unfortunately, before they're able to get the defibrillator completely charged, the little explosive device in her head goes off, and unfortunately, Ferris is killed in the, like, I guess, out in the line of duty, right? And of course, you kind of have the background with him training her. So, and one thing I will say for sure is that Ethan cares deeply about his team. Like, he's kind of shown that right from the beginning of the series. Like, I would say maybe a little bit less in the first movie, like, but I mean, that team wasn't really established, and obviously that team, like, crumbled apart basically because of there being a mole on the team, obviously, right? But after that, you can kind of see that he starts to care a little bit more about the people around him, as opposed to, like, what happens to him, right? Like, he's becoming more of a selfless person, obviously, as the movie series goes on. So, where was I there? So, yeah, Ethan, the charge goes off. Ethan does receive a microdot from Ferris and must retrieve the information on it. Of course, I'm not exactly sure what a microdot is, but I guess it's like a pretty advanced piece of equipment, obviously, if it can only be, like, they couldn't see what was on it with, like, a magnifying glass, so now they have to get somebody to decode it and find whatever information is on it, right? So they discover that Davian is going to be in Rome at the Vatican in 2 days to sell the rabbit's foot for $850 million. Now, Benji assumes it may be some sort of, like, anti-god technology that could one day wipe out the world. And I feel like there was, like, little Easter eggs in all of these movies. Like, if I didn't say it in my review for the first one, like, even when Kittredge in the first movie tells the one guy that he wants to send William Dunlow to surveillance in, like, Alaska or Antarctica, I think. One of those two. I can't remember the exact line, but anyway, it was one of those two. So it kind of, like, there's a lot of foreshadowing in these movies that I'm sure they went back to for later on movies to, like, establish an actual storyline, right? Because I would say this was the one that kind of set the group, and then the next movie obviously kind of sets the tone for the rest of the series, right? So yeah, they go to Rome, Italy, to the Vatican, and Ethan and his team make it into the Vatican, and Ethan disguises himself as Davian, and that was one of the coolest scenes probably in the movie where he, oh my god, where, I can't think of her name now, where Zan there spills the wine on Davian's shirt, and he has to go into the bathroom, then when he looks up, he sees himself behind him, and like I would be pretty startled by that too, right? Like obviously seeing like my like literal identical twin in the mirror, I'd be like, okay, what's going on now? Now obviously he doesn't have time to react. Now it was a little scary for them too, because they had to like wait the 30 seconds for his voice to activate into Davian's voice, so he's like trying to like cough and tell his security guard like stay at the door, like I don't need you in here, sort of thing. So it was one of those funny scenes for sure. There was definitely some cheesy moments in this, I would say, where like Ethan gets on top of the wall and says like the line like Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Like there was definitely some cheesy humor, but I think as the movie series goes on, the cheesy humor kind of just fits a little bit better as we go along, especially with Simon Pegg. I would say like obviously his character Benji, kind of just the cheesy comedy just kind of rolls off the tongue with him, right? And yeah, just the banter between the two of them for sure. Yeah, just the chemistry between him and Tom Cruise for sure are just good. So they are able to deceive Davian's bodyguard and kidnap the real Davian, obviously. Ethan then questions Davian about the rabbit's foot, but Davian just threatens him and tells him that killing Ferris was just for fun, and that, keeps asking him, like, do you have a wife, a girlfriend? I'm going to find her, I'm going to hurt her, sort of thing. Like, he doesn't even seem to care that he's the one being captured. He seems to be pretty confident that he's going to make it out of the situation no matter what happens, right? So, of course, Ethan kind of drags the seat along and then like almost dangles him completely out of the plane and starts cutting the straps on the seat. And this is before Davian has even learned Ethan's name, right? And then you can hear Luther yelling like, Ethan, this isn't you, like we need him alive, sort of thing. We'll never find what we're looking for if we don't keep him alive, like he's an asset, like kind of thing, right? Like don't kill our only lead, right? So of course Ethan obviously backtracks a little bit, and then Davian says to him, who I'm, what was it? He says, Davian tells Ethan what he is selling, who he is selling it to is like the last thing he should be concerned about after obviously learning Ethan's name, right? So Ferris's microdot tells Ethan that Brassels is working with Davian, or at least that's what she believes. And then suddenly Ethan and his team are attacked and Davian manages to escape. So that scene on the bridge where the drone attacks them and then the team on the helicopter is able to extract Davian out of there. And yeah, that was one of the craziest scenes I think I've ever seen in the Mission Impossible movies, where he just gets blown back by the missile or whatever. So I would imagine he was a hurting unit by the time that whole debacle went down on the bridge. So unfortunately Julia is captured. He doesn't really have time to get to her. By the time he gets to the hospital, she's actually being wheeled out right past him. And it's like, oh my god, just the things you notice in these movies now, like going back and watching it, you're like, no way, man, did he just totally miss the fact that his wife was just wheeled out by this guy, like right beside her, and like right beside him, and he had no idea, right? But I guess you would know. You'd be in such a rush to try to find like where she was in the hospital, and of course everybody's like, oh, she left, sort of thing. And then of course one of the girls tries to like page downstairs to where she was. I would think that if he seemed that concerned, probably one of them should have just went and looked for her. That's what I would have thought, but I guess none of them really seemed to be that concerned about the way he was talking on the phone. I don't know. It just seemed like I would think that if that were me, I'd be like, this seems kind of urgent. Like he's really adamant about where she is. I should probably go check on her, sort of thing. That would just be my thought process. So she is wheeled out of the hospital as Ethan runs in and then gets a call from Davian. Ethan must get him the rabbit's foot or Julia dies. So I guess at this point, obviously Davian's pretty confident that Ethan's going to do whatever he tells him, right? Now, unfortunately, Ethan is captured and taken back to the IMF facility, I do believe, and then Musgrave is able to like silently mouth the words because he knows Ethan can read lips, and tells him to go to Shanghai, um, in the Fenshane Apartments, room 1406, and that helps Ethan escape the facility, obviously. So Ethan then gets to Shanghai, China, and now Ethan must perform a fulcrum from the taller building to the Hang Shang Lu building. That's what they call it in the movie, anyway. Now, it did have a different, I guess it has a different legitimate name, but I didn't want to write that one down. I wanted to learn the name of the buildings that they were using in the movie, and I couldn't find that. Like, they wouldn't give me the name that was used in the movie, so I just had to kind of go back and rewind that scene a few times to get the actual name of the building they used in the movie. So he has to get to the lab and steal the rabbit's foot. Now Ethan is able to retrieve the rabbit's foot, but he's not able to get back to the roof of the building to do his like base jump at a high enough level. So now he's jumping from an even lower height, and that whole scene, just him getting caught up on the road and having to like chase the rabbit's foot down, is just absolutely insane. And then them getting chased by the security guards out on the street in the car, and he literally calls Davian with like 5 seconds left before they were getting ready to kill Julia, right? Um, so Davian tells Ethan to meet him at the train yard of Dunan Zonglu, and then of course Ethan gets there, but he does tag the rabbit's foot in order for Musgrave to track him down, obviously, and he does tell him, like if you don't hear from me, send an army in after this, right? So the code was 839641, so Musgrave can track him, right? And then the next day, he gets into the car and they tell him to drink this serum or whatever that knocks him out. And when he wakes up, they put the charge in his head. And then Musgrave kind of reveals himself as the person who was working with Davian the entire time. So it wasn't Brassels, and he seems to want all of the information off of the microdot that Ferris gave him, saying, did she buy the whole thing with Brassels? And then he talks about, being able to use Davian instead of turning him in, sort of thing. He didn't want to go with what Brassels was saying, like bring Davian in. He didn't want that. So I guess Musgrave plans to sell the rabbit's foot to a Middle Eastern buyer, and then give the U.S. credible intel that is who it was sold to. And then obviously they'll send a report to the U.S. Security Council, which will eventually bring on a military strike, and then within a week, cleaning up the mess, sort of thing. And then in his eyes, democracy wins, basically, because like their country will do what they do best, go in and clean up the mess, based on what Davian did, right? Because Musgrave can easily pin everything right on Davian. And of course, I guess they killed his translator, and they used the mask to make it look like it was Julia, obviously, in front of Ethan, so that they were sure that Ethan brought the right device. I'm like, oh my god, dude, like, obviously he cared enough already to even come that far. You would think that, he would try to double cross you at this point, right? But I mean, I guess they couldn't be too careful. They obviously wanted to make sure they had the right thing, right? So Ethan is able to actually make it out of there once he gets Musgrave close enough, and he's able to attack him and get out of the chair. And then he's able to call Benji for help in order to track Julia's location. So he did want to hear Julia's voice to make sure that she was alive before he actually gave up any more information, obviously, right? So yeah, he hears Julia's voice, and then he knows he has to get to her, right? He does end up making it to her, but as soon as he gets to her location, Damien activates the charge in his head, which kind of allows him and gives him like a unfair advantage, obviously, against Ethan, right, in a fight, because Ethan's trying to battle this charge. Like, I don't know exactly what it does inside your head before it goes off, but it clearly messes with it somehow, like gives you like a pretty powerful headache, right, when it's turned on. Um, but Ethan is able to fight back and ends up killing Davian when they roll out into the street and this truck comes down the road and Ethan just rolls not in like just the nick of time, and Davian looks up and the truck just takes him out completely. So he was able to kill Davian in the end. Obviously, I think that was probably about the only way you're ever going to get rid of somebody like that, because if you let them live, like Musgrave said, like where one of those is captured, two more people like that just pop up sort of the next day, right? And I'm sure Davian probably had a, a plan B and a plan C, because he always seemed to be way ahead of what Ethan was thinking, or it was just blind luck that he was able to get out of some of these situations. But um, and then of course he then has to ask Julia to zap him in order to stop the charge, and then Julia has to bring him back to life. And that wasn't without her own like small turmoils too, because she ends up having to shoot two, like one of the guards that was with Davian, and then I think she turns around and ends up shooting Musgrave. Now she's not going to know who any of these people are, so it's not going to mean anything to her, right? Like she's never met Musgrave before, and yeah, she doesn't really know what Ethan's job is, but she has a very good feeling that it's not what he was saying in the very beginning of the movie, obviously. So he does tell her, obviously, what he does. Like, he says that he works for the IMF and that everything he's telling her is like top secret, right? Like, he shouldn't be telling her. But at this point, how is he not going to when she's become a part of it, right? So that is how the movie ends, with the two of them, I guess, like walking off into the sunset sort of thing. And they're married now, so they're gonna go like live their life, and he goes out on his honeymoon with her, sort of thing, like taking a break from the whole Mission Impossible stuff for a little while. Um, so yeah, I mean, it was a solid movie, not the best in the franchise. Like I said, I probably went over obviously a couple of things that I didn't really like in this movie, but yeah, I mean, other than that, another solid Mission Impossible movie that just kind of established the group a little bit better, and we can kind of see where the franchise is going to go from this movie, I think. Obviously a little bit better on the fourth, but yeah, other than that, that's it for this review, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye for now.